Acts chapter 27. And when it was determined that we should sail for Italy, they delivered Paulos and certain other prisoners to a centurion named Julius of the Augustan cohort, and embarking in a ship of Adramutium, which was about to sail to the places on the coast of Asia, we put to sea, Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius treated Paulos kindly, and gave him leave to go to his friends and refresh himself. And putting to sea from thence, we sailed under the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed across the sea, which is of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Mura, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria, sailing for Italy, and he put us therein. And when we had sailed slowly many days, and were come with difficulty over against Cnidus, the wind not further allowing us, we sailed under the lee of Crete, over against Salmoneur, and with difficulty coasting along it, we came to a certain place called Fair Havens, near whereto was the city of Lasea. And when much time was spent, and the voyage was now dangerous, because the fast was now already gone by, Paulos admonished them. Interesting, isn't it? They knew about the fast, the Day of Atonement. It was a part of their calendar, and they're recognizing, okay, after the fast, then we can expect bad weather because of the time of year. So just like people these days might talk about Christmas being around the corner, something like that, according to the traditions of man, back in these days, they were familiar with the festivals of God and his appointed times, and his fast that he ordained way back in Moses' time. In the days of Moshe, in the law of Moshe, he commanded that his people keep the Day of Atonement, a fast. Paul admonished them, saying, as Paul admonished them and said to them, Sirs, I perceive that the voyage will be with injury and much loss, not only of the lading and the ship, but also of our souls. But the centurion gave more heed to the master and to the owner of the ship than to those things which were spoken by Paulon. And because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised to put to sea from thence, if by any means they could reach Poenix, and winter there, which is a haven of Crete, looking northeast and southeast. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, they weighed anchor and sailed along Crete, close in shore. But after no long time, there beat down from it a tempestuous wind, which is called Euraquilo. And when the ship was caught and could not face the wind, we gave way to it and were driven, and running under the lee of a small island called Gauda, we were able with difficulty to secure the boat. The boat, not the ship, the boat. And when they had hoisted it up, they used helps, undergirding the ship, and fearing lest they should be cast upon the Syrtis, they lowered the gear, and so were driven. And as we labored exceedingly with the storm, The next day they began to throw the freight overboard. And the third day they cast out with their own hands the tackling of the ship. And when neither sun nor stars shone upon us for many days, and no small tempest lay upon us, all hope that we should be saved was being fully removed. And when they had been long without food, then Paulos stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened to me, and not have set sail from Crete, and have gotten this injury and loss. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of soul among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night a messenger of the God whose I am, whom also I serve, saying, Fear not, Paulos, thou must stand before Caesar, and lo, God hath granted thee all them that sail with thee. Evidently, Paulos was praying for them all, because that is what God granted him. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as it hath been spoken to me. But we must be cast upon a certain island. And when the 14th night was come, and we were driven to and fro in the sea of Adria, about midnight the sailors surmised that they were drawing near to some country or land, and they sounded and found 20 fathoms. And after a little space they sounded again and found 15 fathoms. And fearing lest perhaps we should be cast ashore on rocky ground, they let go 4 anchors from the stern and wished for the day. And as the sailors were seeking to flee out of the ship, and had lowered the boat into the sea, under colour as though they would lay out anchors from the foreship, they're pretending, Paulos said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut away the ropes of the boat, and let her fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paulos besought them all to take some food, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye wait and continue fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I beseech you to take some food, for this is for your safety, for there shall not a hair perish from the head of any of you. And when he had said this, and had taken bread, he gave thanks to the God in the presence of all, and he broke it and began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and themselves also took food. And we were, in all, in the ship, 276 souls. And when they had eaten enough, they lighted the ship, throwing out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they perceived a certain bay within a beach, and they took counsel whether they could drive the ship upon it. And casting off the anchors, they left them in the sea. At the same time loosing the bands of the rudders, and hoisting up the foresail to the wind, they made for the beach. But lighting upon a place where 2 seas met, they ran the vessel aground, and the foreship struck and remained unmovable. But the stern began to break up by the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, desiring to save Paulon, stayed them from their purpose, and commanded that they who could swim should cast themselves overboard and get first to the land, and the rest, some on planks and some on other things from the ship. And so it was that they all escaped safe to the land.